Grace. Good morning. Morning, good people. What's happening? It's early Monday morning on the morning grind. Salute. Who is getting up early in the morning today? It's Apostle T, Kingdom Media Foundation. I woke up with the word in my spirit, time. And the first thing I thought about was time and chance happen to us all. But then I began to ask the question, do we all really have the same time? I know business entrepreneurs and self-help motivational speakers like to say, we all have been given the same time. It's what you do in the time. But do we all really have the same time? That's the question. Then I had to look up, what is time? What really is time? And I found out that is a philosophical question that is debated among physics, physiologists, and it's debated among religions, and it's debated, in philosophy as well. What is time? Is it a physical component? Is it just something that we created as a mental structure, a mind structure to help us navigate life and to understand the world? One of the things that it said when it talked about time is that it measures the sequence of events. It's a way that we measure the sequence of events. Another thing it talks about how it is a way that we can determine change, the rate of change within something or someone, how fast change occurs. So it talks about measuring the sequence and comparing the sequence of events between one event and the next event, and then also changes that occur within a particular measurement. And it says not only physical changes, but also changes in the mind, so changes of consciousness. So then I thought about power, because it says, what is power? Power is the rate and speed of one that something might travel. So if something you're trying to travel from here to there, the rate at which you do that would be considered power. So I'm looking at all this and I'm thinking about eternity, and I'm thinking about the fact that because God does not change, because he doesn't change, though he works with time, he's not regulated by time, but that time is one of the measurements that God uses to govern as a sovereign being his creation. It's a measurement, along with other things that he uses to govern his creation, calculations, and even the act of measuring itself, putting a capacity upon something, putting a boundary on something, that everything is regulated by some kind of capacity that's set into it. And one of the capacities, or one of the considerations, is the consideration of time. But do we all operate with the same time? And when we think about the fact that different events and different things can happen within an hour, just to say a measure of time that we call an hour. And for one person, an hour could be long. And for another person, an hour can go by fast to them. So now we're also dealing with our perception of time, not only the scientific or mathematical equation of it, but how we experience time is what I'm considering. And even our concept of eternity. There have been times I've been in worship and been in the presence of God in heaven, and it seems like maybe 2 or 3 hours may really have been just like 15 minutes, 20 minutes. It's a perception of time. And then you hear the phrase, time flies by when you're having fun. The idea that if you are doing things that are strenuous, that are grievous, then you're experiencing every moment of that time differently than what you're experiencing when you are enjoying what you're doing. And I've known this with pursuing a passion. When I'm doing something that I love, whether it's reading, whether it's studying, whether it is making beats or whatever, I experience time differently than when I'm doing something I just have to do because it's a duty and it must get done. Experiencing it differently. So do we all really have the same time, if you understand my question? Are we all operating with the same time? Or if you could think about somebody who's standing by a tree for 8 hours, standing still. Is that person experiencing time the same way as someone who's on the road driving for 8 hours? It's the same physical measurement. It's the same mathematical equation. But is that time experienced the same way? And what makes it time? You have young people who have been exposed to different sequences at a faster and accelerated rate. And so they mature, they get exposed to things faster, so that even their body matures, their mind matures to that degree that they've been exposed to different sequences, even though they're younger. Then you can have older people who have not had that exposure and had that experience, who are older in age, but they're not quicker. They're not quick. Right? So age, there's a time on our body, but then there's a time on our consciousness. There's a time that regulates what our features look like, and a time that regulates what our body can do and can't do. But then there's a time that governs our quickness, our speed, and I won't even say our intelligence, because it's not about your intelligence, but our adaptability, the connections that our brain makes with other things, because we've been exposed to more sequences within a particular period of time. And so when we talk about advancement and progress, and when we talk about forward motion, the idea that we can progress and advance by going in slow motion is counterproductive and counterintuitive. We really have to understand that if we want to advance and progress, then we must accelerate the sequences that we experience within the same time frame that we had before. That we expose ourselves to new moments, new sequences, so that we can develop and advance at a faster rate. At a faster rate. So therefore, we can manipulate time by initiating and exposing ourselves to greater sequences and more sequences in that time and space. We can initiate it. So instead of letting time and chance happen to us, we can master our understanding of time and expose ourselves to new experiences, new skills, new knowledge. We can initiate growth, initiate maturation, and initiate transformation just by including more sequences and more events within the time that we have. I don't know if I'm making sense to anybody right now. But what I'm saying is that you can let time and chance happen to you, or you can engage and initiate change and initiate activities and sequences so that you could rapidly grow at a rate that's faster than you were growing before, because you're not experiencing time the same way. So the difference between the person that you would think of as studious, on point intellectually, on point with current events, or on point with what's going on, it seems like their mind is sharp. The difference between them and you, a lot of times, it's not intelligence. The difference is the amount of time that they allow for leisure, and if they fill up their time with education or with knowledge. So it's not an intelligence. It's not an issue of intelligence. It's an issue of exposure to different sequences. It's the intent to expose myself or yourself to the news, to the Word of God, to bring in experiences where you're helping somebody with some kind of job or some kind of activity that will do what? It will fill up your consciousness with a new set of sequences, which will interrupt or change the dynamic of your time, and that ends up transforming you, and it accelerates the growth of your mind because you're making mental connections you weren't able to make before. You're making spiritual connections because whenever you make mental connections and you grow mentally, it opens you up to deeper thoughts that impact the spiritual realm. And then it may, in fact, affect your physical health, because when you're thinking on things that are higher than you were thinking on, then you're moving on a certain vibration in the path, and there's a certain rhythm that changes and deals with your biorhythms that ends up helping you to be more healthy because your thoughts are vibrating on a higher plane. And this is very important because we have to understand that everything begins in the invisible realm and then it manifests in the natural. It manifests in the physical. But it's up to you. It's up to you. So a lot of what we call our personality is not really even our personality. I'm not going to go too deep into this right now because I don't want to mess people up. But a lot of things that we call our personality is not our personality. It's how we have orchestrated the sequences of events and how we deal with time. Because when we prioritize certain things, it begins to create a pattern and imprint on our minds. And what it does is it forms, we are habit creating creatures, habit forming creatures, habit keeping creatures. And we think things are part of our personality when really it's just a habit that we formed based on the time that we have spent doing whatever we have done. So there are people who you would say they're lazy. They have a lazy personality. It's not that they are lazy. Well, they may be lazy, but the reason why they're lazy is not because that's their personality. The reason why they're lazy is because they formed a habit to where they spend more time in leisure than spending time with productivity. And whenever you're spending more time in leisure than productivity, then what happens is you begin to set into a rhythm of that. And your mind and your body expects normalcy. But in order to change that, you can change that if you want to change it. This is why the scripture says that the diligent, those who are diligent, are the ones who actually walk in increase and prosperity, because the diligent fill up their time or fill up their space with productivity. And that productivity begins to not only change their opportunities and change their access and give them more accesses to failure so that they could finally succeed, but it also changes their thought processes because they're being exposed to new occurrences and new events, new problems, new contradictions, new conflicts, and all those things the mind feeds off of to grow. The mind desires to be able to resolve conflicts. All day your mind is trying to resolve conflicts, settle disputes, settle discrepancies in your mind, settle contradictions. So as you expose yourself to new experiences, new ideas, new things, then your mind has something to work with, and it is then processing those things in time differently. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about this later. I'm not done with this, but I have to go right now. I know I didn't see too many people check in, but check in later on and see if you can get a breakdown yourself of how your relationship with time is and your relationship with the events that are occurring and the sequences that are occurring. And do you need to change the pattern of your sequences? Do you need to change the amount of sequences you have within a specific measure of time so that you can change and rearrange and reorganize yourself? We all need to change, but we talk about change all the time. But how do you change? How do you transform? We have to expose ourselves not only to new information, not only to new material, but we needed to expose ourselves to those things at a higher rate and then output to the degree that we respond to the new information by doing something, because time also measures actions and events and occurrences. And so we have to initiate more occurrences within a particular period of time so that our body and our mind can get used to a greater and faster method of activity. More activity produces more experiences, produces more thought patterns, more connections in the brain, and also produces an opportunity for us to transform and change. But I gotta go. I'll talk to you soon. Grace.